Jiva Goswami's history and his instructions from Jiva Goswami. As I think it's appearance of disappearance coming up. Jiva Goswami. Take it away, Prabhu. Thank you, Hare Krishna. Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for inviting me again. It's always such a wonderful opportunity to speak with the devotees from ISKCON Central New Jersey. I kind of feel a bit of a connection there, having assisted in installing beautiful deities there. So I'm always very happy to take this opportunity and speak with everyone. We Today I've been asked to speak about Devananda Pandit and Jiva Goswami on this most auspicious Ekadasi day. And it's quite a challenge to speak about two such august and well-known personalities in the course of the day. We find in the lives of our acharyas that many of them we don't have a lot of information on, but then others we have just a treasure trove of information. And Jiva Goswami is one such individual. So we're going to try and squeeze as much about everybody in as we can today. Start with my pranams, of course. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chaksu Unmanitam Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Mukam Karoti Vachanam Tangamlam Jayati Girim Yakripa Tamaham Bande Sri Guru Majani Tarino. Vanchakalpaturi Bischa Kripa Sindhu Bahebacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare. Jai Shri Prabhupada. The topic of discussing the glories of the Lord's devotees is equally as important and carries as much significance as discussing the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. We find that the glorification of the devotee satisfies not only the congregation of devotees hearing it, but it satisfies the Lord as well. I'd like to quote this verse here. Just as the glories of the Lord are unlimited, so too are the glories of his devotees. The jiva who is covered by an assortment of anarthas cannot understand the true glories of the Vaishnavas and the Vishnu. Even when such person attempts to glorify these individuals, their efforts are quite meager. Nevertheless, if one recognizes one's own inability and humbly glorifies these personalities nonetheless in a powerful, prayerful mood, the Vaishnavas will forgive any flaws in such presentation. A pure devotee is very rare in this world. It is only the great fortune that one gets when they meet such an associate or a person. Chaitanya Charitamrita states that by meditating upon the Guru, upon the Vaishnava, and upon the Lord, all obstacles in one's devotional life are destroyed and all desires are fulfilled. It's a very important point. Obstacles are destroyed. We all have obstacles in our devotional life, different challenges that we face, different things that we have to get through and pass through. And these can easily be destroyed by glorifying Vaishnavas because it puts us in a very prayerful mood. Mahaprabhu's direct associates daily would pay thousands of obeisances to Vaishnavas. Indeed, we should spend some time meditating on Vaishnavas in each and every day. An important element of our devotional service is to observe the appearance and disappearance days of such great Vaishnavas. These occasions are opportunities for us to offer prayers, to seek blessings, and to request the mercy of these personalities. Srila Prabhupada commented on the appearance day of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He said, we can seek his blessings because the grandfather is more merciful than the father. Some of you in our audience may have grandchildren, and generally the grandfather is a little more accommodating, we can say, than the father might be. So, one who chants the glories of these merciful associates of the Lord's will rid themselves of all tendencies that can lead one away from the path of devotional service and help to develop our attachment for Krishna. Well, these are the reasons why we're very attentive to want to glorify the Vaishnavacharyas. And today, since today is actually the appearance day of Devananda Pandit, I'm going to start with Devananda Pandit, where I have some very, very valuable lessons that we can learn from his pastimes. Devananda Pandit was one of the associates of Mahaprabhu that lived in Navadvip Dham, in the section of Navadvip known as Kulia. And this is a very well-known section of Navadvip. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used Devananda to manifest the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam to the entire world. This is an amazing understanding that Mahaprabhu would imbibe in different devotees certain qualities, certain pastimes that would bring about the great manifestation of various aspects of devotional service. Not every devotee was the same, of course. There were so many varieties and so many different activities. So for Devananda Pandit, he was used by Mahaprabhu to bring about the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. Devananda was highly renowned and highly respected for his expertise in considering the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam. Wouldn't that be a glorious thing to be able to be said about ourselves, that this personality was very well known in the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam? So it says that many people, he would hold Bhagavatam classes on a regular basis. This was part of his practice. And devotees far and wide would come. Even non-believers would come just to hear what he had to say. It was so much respected. So he was holding one such class one time, and Srivas Pandit, of course, being a very dear associate of Mahaprabhu, he decided to go and hear the class of Srimad Bhagavatam from Devananda. And Devananda started after, the introductory mantras and kirtan and all like that. Then Devananda began his kirtan, began his lecture. And interesting because on all four sides of Devananda, he was surrounded by his students. He had so many students, and he was such a well-known speaker that everyone was very carefully listening to every word that Devananda said, very focused attention. We saw this many times when Srila Prabhupada would give a lecture. There was no conversation going on in the room other than Prabhupada speaking. Everyone was very, very attentive to hear what he had to say. So now, Srivas Pandit. Srivas Pandit, of course, was a very, very high-level devotee, very advanced in his understanding of the practices of devotional service. Very close associate of both Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Mahaprabhu. So, and there was a particular verse that Devananda mentioned, and he was speaking this verse, and this was a very, very beautiful verse. And upon hearing this verse, Srivas Thakur fell to the ground in great ecstasy. We were discussing in the Bhagavatam class here just a couple of days ago that I was asked to speak on, that the discussion was on Vidura. And upon Vidura's hearing that Lord Krishna actually thought of Vidura as Lord Krishna was departing this planet at the end of his manifest Leela, and how this brought tears of ecstasy to the eyes of Vidura, knowing that his Lord thought of him. So it was discussed in the purport, this manifestation of different types of symptoms of ecstasy. And this is something that many of the associates of Mahaprabhu, just by hearing a particular verse, they would fall into such types of ecstasy. Srivas Pandit was one, of course, the famous pastime with Pundarik Vidhanidhi, when Gadadhar Pandit was brought to hear him. And Pundarik Vidhanidhi similarly fell into a state of ecstasy by hearing just a few verses from the lips of Mukunda. So, in this way, some of the devotees of Mahaprabhu had these ecstatic symptoms manifest by hearing Bhagavatam. And this was the case with Rasika. I'm sorry, this was the case with Srivas Pandit. So, Srivas Pandit was sitting there and heard these verses and went into ecstasy, feeling great symptoms of love of God. He began weeping tears and rolling about on the floor, moaning out loud. And of course, this caused a bit of a disturbance in the class. We can imagine in any one of our classes, in any one of our temples, if such a thing were to happen, the individual would quickly be escorted out of the assembly. And this is exactly what happened in the case of Srivas Pandit. Unfortunately, the disciples of Devananda Pandit were not as advanced as Devananda was. Neither were they anywhere near as advanced as Srivas Pandit was. They could not understand the symptoms that were being manifest by Srivas Pandit. They took it as just some disturbance, and they made different comments. One called out, "Oh, this man is simply a madman causing a disturbance. We should get rid of him." Someone else said, "Yes, he is not properly giving attention to the Srimad Bhagavatam. He does not know how to hear it." Another one yelled, "Yes, we should throw him out. Everyone, please, he should be ejected." So, in this way, some harsh words. And the interesting thing is, Devananda Pandit observed his disciples behaving in this way toward Srivas Pandit, and he did nothing. This is an interesting thing because we have an obligation in the path of devotional service to stand up for devotees when they're mistreated, to try and intercede when a devotee is mistreated, particularly if we know this devotee to be an advanced devotee. I mean, Devananda and Srivas, they were all in the same assembly of associates of Mahaprabhu. Of course, Srivas was a bit more intimate, but nonetheless, Devananda would have known who Srivas was. So he could have, and by all proper etiquette, should have stepped in and corrected his students. He did nothing, and he simply watched as his students physically removed Srivas Pandit from the assembly. It says that if a disciple commits some type of offense, some sinful activity, as a result of the ignorance of the guru, that the guru also gets a reaction for that disciple's misdeeds. Now, let me be clear on this. If under the lack of instruction from the guru, disciple commits a mistake. So in this case, this is exactly what happened. Devananda observed his disciples, his students, offending Srivas by their behavior, and he did not correct it. Therefore, part of that reaction for their misdeeds also came to him. And without saying a word about any of this, once he was removed, without telling anyone at the how he had been mistreated by Devananda, Srivas simply returned home. Now, of course, many of us, the minute we're mistreated, the minute we're improperly respected, we have to tell everyone. This is one of the faults, one of the shortcomings of our modern technology system is that immediately everyone goes to the internet and begins to type everything out, all of their grievances, and airing them for the world to hear. And this is, in reality, a type of false ego. Don't they know who I am? Don't they know what an advanced devotee I am? How could I have been treated this way? And putting all this information out there. Srivas, of course, was an extremely humble Vaishnava. He did not make any grievance. He did not make a list of personal offenses he had been handed and put this out to anyone. He simply accepted this. All right, this is what has happened, and continued and went home. Now, one very important factor although both of these individuals, Devananda and Srivas, are associates of Mahaprabhu, this pastime took place before the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So they would both ultimately become part of Mahaprabhu's circle of devotees, but this particular exchange took place before pastimes of Mahaprabhu manifested. So, in due course of time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he did advent in this world, and he manifested all of his beautiful childhood pastimes. He then manifested his Leela of being a student, of engaging in different types of studies, and manifested his pastimes of learning and becoming educated, and grasping all the different fields of knowledge, and manifested his pastimes as being a young teacher, a professor, we could say, you know, touring and speaking and lecturing on different subjects, and, in this way, and as well as ultimately manifesting his divinity in the house of Srivas Thakur. These pastimes, Srivas Angam, these pastimes of Mahaprabhu were the beginning of his Sankirtan Leela. And this kirtans, these activities amongst the very intimate devotees that went on in the house of Srivas, these were not open to everyone. And at the time, Mahaprabhu would reveal different things. There was one specific incident, it's described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita and in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, the Mahaprakash Lila. Mahaprabhu brought different devotees forward and manifested amazing exchanges with them. In some cases, he would transform himself into a particular form of the Lord they were attached to. In other cases, he would reveal things about them. So, in this way, he was showing his divine nature as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the super soul in the heart of all living entities, what to speak of the devotees, and understanding what was going on with him. So, in the midst of this Mahaprakash Leela, he called Srivas Pandit forward. He said, Free Srivas, do you remember the time when you were hearing Srimad Bhagavatam at the house of Devananda Pandit? Now, Srivas was immediately shocked because this took place before Mahaprabhu, and Srivas had not mentioned it to anyone. He said, when you fell to the ground in ecstasy upon hearing the nectarian verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, then all the disciples of Devananda, as a result of his ignorance of your exalted devotion, they threw you out of that class. At that time, you went home in great distress, but accepting this as the circumstances and told no one. Do you remember this? Srivas was very, very astonished. He came before the Lord and he fell at the Lord's lotus feet, grasping the Lord's lotus feet. This is a description that we hear periodically throughout the Chaitanya Charitamrita and the Chaitanya Bhagavat, where the different devotees who get the opportunity to not only offer obeisances, not only offer full dandavats, but while doing so, to reach their hands forward and grasp the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Such an amazing opportunity. So, in this way, he could understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead was knowing everything going on with his devotees. So, anyway, one day, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was wandering through the town of Navadvip, had his disciples with him, his followers, his students, and he came upon the road near the home of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's father, Maheshwar Vishvarata Pandit. Maheshwar Vishvarata Pandit lived there in Navadvip, as had Sarvabhauma before he relocated to Jagannath Puri and became the great personality who was in Puri and the ultimate associate of Mahaprabhu there. So at that time, in the house of Mahesh Visharada Pandit, Devananda was giving class on Srimad Bhagavatam. And from a long distance off, Mahaprabhu could hear Devananda speaking on the Bhagavatam. Nowadays, of course, we also in Vrindavan, we can hear from a long distance off anything going on because they use these huge loudspeakers turned up at maximum volume. Sometimes it is jokingly said that the Nectar Devotion describes that there are 64 qualities of Krishna, but that we see in modern day Vrindavan, there's a 65th quality of Krishna. And that is that he's deaf because the speakers are always turned so loud, they have to be sure that he hears it because they don't think he can hear. This is a local joke they tell there sometimes. At any rate, so Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could hear Devananda was giving this class from some distance off, and it angered him. He became very, very upset at this. And with very, very sharp words, Chaitanya Bhagavat describes it with very sharp words. Mahaprabhu said, "What does this man know about the meaning of Srimad Bhagavatam? How can he understand the actual purport of Srimad Bhagavatam? He will never know the meaning of the Bhagavatam in many lifetimes, regardless of how many times he speaks on it. The Srimad Bhagavatam is the literary avatar of Sri Krishna himself. The Bhagavatam promotes bhakti as the ultimate goal of one's life." This is the words of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He continues, "The Srimad Bhagavatam is the essence of the four Vedas. It is the literary form of divine love. The four Vedas, they are just like milk. The Srimad Bhagavatam, it is like butter. Sukadev Goswami is the churner of that butter, which is then eaten by Parikshit Maharaj. That Sukadev Goswami, who is very dear to me, knows the meaning of Srimad Bhagavatam. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, Sukadev Goswami has expressed the truths of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He has expressed the truths of my own opinions. The servants of the Lord are glorified in the Srimad Bhagavatam. One who finds a difference between the glorification of the Lord and the glorification of his devotees will find that their good intelligence will be destroyed. An irreligious person who rejects bhakti and finds some other meaning in the Srimad Bhagavatam will never understand the Srimad Bhagavatam. So these were the words that Chaitanya Bhagavat tells us Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spoke when hearing that Devananda Pandit was still speaking on the Bhagavatam all these years after this incident took place. And he was pointing out that Devananda Pandit's offense to Srivas disqualified him for actually being qualified to speak on the Bhagavatam. This is a very instructive point to all of us that we have to be very cautious in not finding fault with devotees and not finding fault with Vaishnavas. If we do so, we can understand, according to these instructions from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that we become unqualified to speak on the Srimad Bhagavatam. We may know so many verses, we may know so many pastimes, we may be eloquent speakers, whatever. If we offend Vaishnavas, all of those so-called qualifications are not looked at, and the disqualification of offending Vaishnavas becomes prominent in blocking our ability to appreciate, understand, and share the message of Srimad Bhagavatam. So after he said all these things, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu kept this very angry mood, and he fled away from this place where he wouldn't have to hear the speaking of Devananda Pandit any longer. And the devotees, they all caught Mahaprabhu and said, "My dear Lord, please, please, don't leave this place. The scriptures sing of the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. They say that they are highly mysterious and inconceivable, that the Bhagavatam cannot be understood simply by vast learning or by powerful austerity. Sometimes devotees, they think over the course of history by performing great austerities, I'll become qualified. actually, in the pastimes of Srivasangam, which I was mentioning just a moment or two ago. There was once these pastimes, Mahaprabhu kept them in the beginning, he kept them contained. He did not openly manifest these pastimes because these were the great ecstasies that were manifest. And so only a handful of intimate devotees were allowed in these kirtans at Srivasangam. And the doors are actually closed and locked. So one time Mahaprabhu was doing kirtan. He began and then he stopped. He said, Srivas, is there someone who is impure here in the room? No, no. Srivas said, my Lord, only our associates are here. All right. So Mahaprabhu began again. And Srivas, something is not right. Srivas Thakur admitted that he had admitted into the group, he confessed that he had admitted into the group one very austere brahmachari to take part in the kirtans. Mahaprabhu questioned, what is his qualification? He is a very austere brahmachari. He only subsists on drinking milk. It was a great austerity. Sometimes during the Chaturmasya months or during different vratas, devotees will take a vow and just drink milk. Sukadev Goswami, this was how he was existing. We hear record of sages who lived simply on begging milk from the different grihastas. So Mahaprabhu said, do you think that simply by only drinking milk one becomes qualified for hearing the holy name, for hearing the pure nectar of the Lord? So in this way, Mahaprabhu was pointing out that it's not just austerities, just as is being said right here by the devotees, that, this is a very powerful austerity that can't be understood. Then they continued. One who attempts to know the Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm sorry, this is the Lord speaking. I've misrepresented. This is the Lord speaking. He's pointing out these faults. And he continues, one who attempts to know the Srimad Bhagavatam through scholarship even will not understand it. One who recognizes that the Bhagavatam is non-different than the Supreme Personality of Godhead knows that the essence of the Bhagavatam can be known only through devotion, not through scholarship, not through austerity. So this is Mahaprabhu's very strong instruction as the devotees tried to encourage him. No, you must stay, you must stay. And he's responding to them why he's leaving and why he doesn't want to hear from this Devananda. He continues, one who understands the Srimad Bhagavatam is Krishna himself. That person alone can understand Srimad Bhagavatam. One can only understand the Bhagavatam's meaning through divine love. If one wants to understand this, he must serve both the book Bhagavata and the devotee Bhagavata. And this is where Mahaprabhu is honing in on this point. This is where he's bringing forward the very essence of this pastime with Devananda. That not simply by knowing the Bhagavatam, not simply by reciting the Bhagavatam, but serving the devotee who represents the Bhagavatam. That these are two paths that must be followed. Srila Prabhupada would often use the analogy of the train track, that a train doesn't go on just one track, it goes on two tracks, and they have to be balanced equally. They have to be the same distance apart and the same focus on both so that the train will go smoothly. Here, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is making the same point, that Devananda may be very knowledgeable of the Bhagavatam, but he is not knowledgeable of serving the Vaishnavas. So Mahaprabhu points out like this. And so in this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spoke the different truths of actually serving the Bhagavatam to his disciples, to his students. And then after finishing this, he concluded this and went home. Now, interestingly enough, Devananda Pandit had come to know that Mahaprabhu was some short distance away. And so he had stopped his speaking and he could hear this conversation Mahaprabhu was giving. Mahaprabhu's practical guidance on the Bhagavatam. But in the same mood as he had shown to Srivas, he did not pay any mind to these different instructions. He just heard, oh, he's saying this, that, and the other, but it's not so important. So now we see that twice Devananda, on the pretense of thinking he had great understanding of the Bhagavatam, has dismissed the devotees. So in due course of time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wound up his student pastimes. He wound up his Grihastha Lila, and he took sannyas. And of course, we know that when he took sannyas, he relocated to Jagannath Puri. Very interesting. His reasoning in locating to Jagannath Puri was primarily for the fact of satisfying his mother. I mean, there's an inner and outer reason, of course, to all these things. But his mother had requested that you please stay somewhere close so at least I can hear about your activities. So this is why he stayed in Jagannath Puri. So at that time, once he had taken sannyas, and once he had relocated to Puri, Devananda happened to remember. Whenever the Shastras talk about by some coincidence or this devotee happened, we know that ultimately this means the Supreme Personality of God is bringing things to a culmination. So Devananda happened to remember the instructions that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had given that one fateful day, just a short distance from where he was speaking. And he began to think to himself, such a great personality came near to me, yet I did not go and meet him. I could not understand the greatness and glories of such an exalted personality as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. How did I misunderstand how much he is filled with Krishna Prema? So he began to get a little bit of a realization of Mahaprabhu's divine nature. And of course, this Chaitanya Charitamrita tells us this is the reason Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas, because he was not being given the due respect that was necessary for this particular incarnation. This is an example of how, by that having taken sannyas, it triggered the memories of Devananda Pandit somewhere down the time, and he began to appreciate that he had missed an opportunity there. So, a little bit later than this, in the Kulia area of Navadvip, where he stayed, Vakreshwar Pandit had gone to visit the home of a devotee. Vakreshwar Pandit is an amazing personality in Mahaprabhu's Leela. He has the unique ability to dance in kirtan beyond what anyone can imagine. Sometimes we have kirtans going and we'll see the dancing is going on very, very ecstatically, and devotees are dancing all through the kirtan, half hour, 30 minutes, an hour, hour and a half, just going on. Just how did the devotees dance so much like that? Sometimes even here in Alachua, the arti will be finished during a festival time and prasadam will be distributed, and the devotees are still staying in the temple room dancing during the kirtan. So even giving up taking prasadam. So this was one of the great magical almost qualities of Vakreshwar Pandit. He was able to dance nonstop in kirtans. His dancing in the kirtan was glorified in the Chaitanya Charitamrita and Chaitanya Bhagavat, like so amazingly. 72 hours nonstop he could dance. Of course, this means the kirtan was going on for 72 hours nonstop. So very, very wonderful like this. So at any rate, he had come in that area, and many of the local residents had come to hear of the arrival of Vakreshwar Pandit and the news of this kirtan that he was taking part in. So they all came and gathered from all parts of Navadvip, thousands of people. And as the night went on, more and more devotees came and began arriving for this kirtan. And Devananda he thought, all right, I should go also. I should go and see how is this kirtan going on and what are the activities of a Krishna Pandit there. So he went to the kirtan. And when he saw the empowered personality of a Krishna Pandit and heard the sweet kirtan, he was astonished. He became greatly astonished by this, and he stood transfixed for quite some long period of time, watching the kirtan and watching Bakeshwar Pandit dance, just amazed. Sometimes we may have an experience like this where we can sit for a great period of time and listen to someone speak, or go before the deities and see the deities and look at their beauty for a long period of time. Many times we come in, we see the deities, we offer obeisances, we go on about our business. But to be able to look and absorb and drink in the beauty of the deity is a very special opportunity. So he came and he was just transfixed like this. And as the night grew on, more and more people came in. And as we know, when you get more and more people, there become these crowds, and everyone's pushing to try and get closer and see more. And they're in the back and they want to be in the front, or they want to get to the front. So these crowds were becoming very boisterous and very rowdy, and pushing in on Vikreshwar Pandit's space, as we might say. Many times when devotees go somewhere, senior devotees, they are escorted, we can use the term, by personalities who make sure that no one gets too close to bother them. I had the opportunity this past Kartik. I saw Radhanath Swami in the temple complex at Krishna Balaram, and I went to approach him, and two or three of his men, not knowing me, they kind of pushed me out of the way. And I was, no, I know him. I just want to say hello to him. So even Mahaprabhu, when Mahaprabhu would go to the temple, there were different devotees that had the service to take care of making sure that no one got in his way and encroached on and pushed in close to him like that. So at any rate, these crowds were becoming like this. And Devananda, had his cane. It's a very common thing to see that the sadhus walk with a cane, keep monkeys away or dogs away, or sometimes in their elder years. And he used this cane to hold the crowd back, to keep them at a distance so that Vikreshwar Pandit could continue his dancing uninterrupted. This ecstatic dancing, jumping and twirling, and Chaitanya Charitamrita gives many descriptions of the different dancing of the associates of Mahaprabhu. So Devananda Pandit was pushing the crowd back with his cane held sideways and holding them at a distance so that Vikreshwar Pandit's ecstasies of dancing and hearing the kirtan would not be interrupted. And during the height of this dancing, Vikreshwar Pandit fell to the ground in ecstasy. Now, when he fell, Devananda Pandit went over to him and very carefully picked him up off of the dusty dirt path and placed him on his own lap and tried to comfort him. He took his own chadar and began to wipe the dust off of the holy body of Vikreshwar Pandit. And in this way, it was on that day that Devananda Pandit began his service to the devotees. Vikreshwar Pandit was the vehicle by which Devananda Pandit was able to pass over simply being a scholar, an intellectual understanding the Bhagavatam, and actually engaging in serving the devotees. And that devotee was Vikreshwar Pandit. So after Mahaprabhu had been for some time in Jagannath Puri, and after he had shown his sannyas leela there, he did return to Navadvip. And upon his returning, when he came to visit, many, many devotees, they came to him, they ran before him, they fell at his lotus feet. They felt that their lives had been returned. You can imagine the devotees of Navadvip, the devotees of Mayapur, they had felt like life had been stripped from them when Mahaprabhu left. Mahaprabhu was their sole focus. And when he left and returned, I went to Jagannath Puri to take sannyas. It was just unbearable for them. So upon his return, it was like life had been reinstated into them. They felt great satisfaction, great happiness, and their joy, their pleasure, their ecstasy, it was boundless. So in order to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to be able to get a glimpse of his lotus feet, thousands of people gathered. And whoever had previously committed offenses against either the Lord or his devotees, they came to Navadvip and were very eager to be forgiven for those offenses, now understanding the divine nature of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Any offense a devotee had committed, they understood Mahaprabhu can forgive that offense. So they came to him for this purpose. Now, at that time, the place was given the name Aparada Bhajanam, or the place of amnesty, it was sometimes called, because Mahaprabhu was forgiving so many offenses. And after forgiving the devotees' offenses that may have committed, he would then instruct them in the science of devotional service. So that, of course, Devananda Pandit, he came and he took the darshan of the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, offering his obeisances only at a distance. He kind of cowered and shrank away, stayed in the shadows, standing off to one side, because he realized by his service to Vikreshwar Pandit, the devotional mood in his heart had been opened, and he realized the variety of offenses he had committed throughout his life. However, as we found in the pastimes of Nityananda and Raghunath Das Goswami, when Raghunath Das offered obeisances from a distance, Nityananda saw him, said, "You're keeping a long distance from me. Come forward, come forward." Called him a thief. So in the same way, Mahaprabhu saw that Devananda is there. So he called them. He said, "Devananda, come." He said, "You are the servant of my dear servant, Vakreshwar Pandit. By your service to him, you have pleased me greatly. And as a result of your service to him, you have now become one of my close associates. Vakreshwar Pandit is empowered with Krishna Shakti. By becoming the devotee of Vakreshwar Pandit and serving him, you have thus obtained the mercy of Krishna." So here again, Mahaprabhu is emphasizing the potency of serving the devotees, particularly those devotees that are very dear to him. Now, hearing these words from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, both appreciating, appreciating Devananda's service to Vikreshwar Pandit, and at the same time forgiving him for his offenses and bringing him into his circle, Devananda Pandit became overwhelmed and his voice choked up. And in a mood of service, he called out and said, "Oh, my dear Lord, oh, Supreme Master, you have appeared in Navadvip just to deliver all of the fallen souls. I am a great sinner. I have committed so many sins and offenses against the Vaishnava and against the Lord himself. I have failed to worship your lotus feet when I had the opportunity." This is again referring to that chance when Mahaprabhu was near where he was speaking and he dismissed Mahaprabhu. "As a result of these things, I have cheated myself out of your causeless mercy." It's one thing if we're cheated by someone unknowingly, we get, they have all these scams out on the internet nowadays that everybody's always warning us about, and I'm sure, like myself, so many of you get these things in the mail, what's that most famous one? Some African prince has money he wants to share with you, and you'll now become a millionaire if you just give him your bank account number and he'll deposit money for you. So things like that, we may become cheated unknowingly. But here, Devananda Pandit is chastising himself that he's cheated himself by not embracing the causeless mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he had the opportunity. He continues, O Lord of all creation, O super soul of all living entities, you are supremely merciful. By your causeless mercy, I've been able to take the darshan of your holy lotus feet on this day. O supremely merciful Lord, please be kind upon me and instruct me in the real goal of life. Please explain to me the meaning of Srimad Bhagavatam as I have not understood it. Now, this takes a great amount of humility. Here's a devotee, Devananda, whose entire existence is based upon his speaking the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. He's respected for such. He's sought out for hearing such. And yet, in the presence of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, having received his mercy, he looks at himself and realizes, I don't understand the Bhagavatam. I've committed offenses against the Vaishnavas. How can I understand the Bhagavatam in that way? So, my dear Lord, you please instruct me what is the real meaning of this. So, this is a very humble plea by Devananda, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu responds to him accordingly. He says, listen carefully, O Brahmana. Always praise the Srimad Bhagavatam. Never let any explanation of Srimad Bhagavatam that is not based in bhakti issue forth from your lips. From the beginning, from the middle, to the end, this is the meaning. Constant devotion to Krishna is eternally and perfectly flawless and infallible. It is the goal of human life. The Supreme Lord appears in innumerable incarnations, beginning with Karma. His appearance and disappearance is transcendental. In the same way, Srimad Bhagavatam is not a material creation. Its appearance and disappearance is completely divine. In a trance of bhakti yoga, Vyasadeva compiled the Srimad Bhagavatam. It passed through him and appeared on his tongue as a result of the mercy of Krishna. If one does not understand that the Srimad Bhagavatam is the divine truth on the level of God himself, he will never realize its true meaning. This is the verdict of all authorized scriptures. One who understands the Srimad Bhagavatam in this way has real knowledge. So here Mahaprabhu is giving that request that Devananda has finished his prayers to him with. Please instruct me on the meaning of Bhagavatam. Mahaprabhu continues, if one approaches Srimad Bhagavatam with material knowledge, he will never understand the sublime message of Srimad Bhagavatam. If, however, one is unlearned and takes shelter of the Bhagavatam, he will be enlightened by its true message. The Srimad Bhagavatam is filled with divine love, with prema. It is an extension of Krishna himself, and it reveals his confidential pastimes of divine love. And then Mahaprabhu concludes, O Brahmana, previously you committed an offense to the lotus feet of Srivas Pandit. Now think about this time-wise. This is Mahaprabhu's had 24 years as a householder. He's been in Puri for 5 years when he comes back. So there's 29 years. And this happened originally before Mahaprabhu. So 30-something years prior, this offense was committed, yet Mahaprabhu is still pointing it out to him. He says, previously you committed an offense to the lotus feet of Srivas Pandit. You must now go to him and beg forgiveness at his lotus feet. There is no difference between the book Bhagavat and the Bhakta Bhagavat. If you get the mercy of the Bhakta Bhagavat, then you will easily attain the mercy of the book Bhagavat. So it appears from this statement of Mahaprabhu's that there is no expiration date on the offenses one commits. So, sometimes in criminal cases in the American justice system, what's that? I forget the phrase for that, but it's the length of time by which one can, this happened too long ago. They can't prosecute the individual for that. So here we find that the length of time does not matter when one commits an offense against a devotee until they seek forgiveness for that offense. And even though it's 30 something years later, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is instructing him, you go to Srivas Pandit and beg forgiveness for that offense. So, having heard these words from Mahaprabhu, Devananda immediately ran to the home of Srivas Thakur and begged forgiveness for his offenses. At that time, of course, Srivas embraced Devananda Pandit, forgave all offenses, didn't even, it wasn't like he was carrying around for 30 years. That Devananda, he offended me at such and such point. He completely forgotten about it. This wasn't even on his radar of something to be remembered. But Mahaprabhu did. As the Lord says, if one offends me, that is one thing. But if one offends my devotee, I do not forget that. So in this way, it mentions that the four directions were filled the sound of the holy name as the devotees were jubilant upon Mahaprabhu's return to Navadvip and all the blessings he gave to Vaishnavas. And then from that day on, Devananda Pandit was accepted into the midst of the close followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as a great devotee for his service to the Vaishnavas. Devananda Pandit's glories are appreciated in this mood as one who eagerly and steadfastly serves the Vaishnavas. We see that this transformation is a significant part, even in mundane literatures. We just recently passed the Christmas holidays, and there's that famous story, The Christmas Carol. The individual Scrooge is, just a horrible person, but he has this transformation. And once he has that transformation, from that day forth, he was accepted as a wonderful person. So even in mundane literatures, these types of transformations are accepted as something to be sought after, significant. What to speak of on the glorious topic of Srimad Bhagavatam and the service to the Vaishnavas, Devananda Pandit completely turned around his devotional mood and appreciated so much the association of Mahaprabhu, the instructions of Mahaprabhu, and the service to the Vaishnavas. So these are some of the glorious pastimes of Devananda Pandit. One of those devotees that doesn't get spoken about a lot. Sometimes devotees are like, I'd never heard about Devananda Pandit before. As I mentioned at the beginning, there are different devotees we have a lot of information on and different devotees that kind of pass under the radar. One such devotee that comes to mind, Rasikananda. His appearance day is on the same day as Govardhan Puja. So on Govardhan Puja, nobody's thinking about Rasikananda. Everybody's thinking about Govardhan Puja. So in this way. Now, I've also been asked to speak on Jiva Goswami. Jiva Goswami is a personality that we could go for another 2 or 3 days speaking about. But I do want to mention that I'm going to put in the here in the chat here, I have a link I'm going to share. The real lecture to be heard on Jiva Goswami comes from Sitala Mataji. She has, for many of you know, she has written the book on Narottam Das Thakur after a decade of study on the life of Narottam. And she is currently compiling information on a possible book on Jiva Goswami. Whether it's completed or not, that remains to be seen. But she gave a class 2 Kartiks ago under the guidance of under the collection of Indraduma Swami's Parikrama party. She was invited and came and spoke on Jiva Goswami. And I want to share that link with you right now because today we will speak a few words about Jiva Goswami, but primarily, there we go. I've posted it in the chat room on this meeting here so that everybody can go to that. This is, in my opinion, the most astounding class you will ever hear on Jiva Goswami. I know that's quite a statement to make, because so many exalted, highly advanced devotees have spoken to Jiva Goswami. But this is very, very important. One of the things we can fit into this time frame we have here about Jiva Goswami is Prabhupada's statements about Jiva Goswami. Prabhupada boldly said, my mission, this is Prabhupada speaking, my mission is to spread the glories and the teachings of Jiva Goswami all over the world. Jiva Goswami, as we know, was a greatly respected and prolific writer. And his service to Rupa Goswami and his intimate connection to the Goswamis in Vrindavan is really quite amazing. His lineage, of course, brings him directly back to Rupa and Sanatan. Rupa, Sanatan, and Sri Vallabha, these were three brothers. And of the three brothers, there was only one descendant, and that was from Vallabha, and that was Sri Jiva. So three such amazing personalities, three such glorious individuals, and one child. So in his household life, this would have been while the brothers were, I'm sorry, in his childhood life. In his childhood life, in his household, this would have been while the brothers were serving under the Shah, Nawab Hussain Shah, and engaged in different government activities. We find that during this time, it's not uncommon that different devotees were engaged in the service of the Muslim government. It was a livelihood. It was, in the case of Sanatan Rupa, it was required. The Shah approached them and understood their amazing qualities, their amazing abilities, and made it very clear that if they did not enter into his government and assist in his management, that he would cause great difficulty for the Vaishnavas. So, they accepted this. The glorification, the description given of Jiva Goswami's childhood, of his bodily appearance, is just so wonderful that his complexion was completely golden. It was just effulgent. Anywhere he went in the home, he illuminated that area. His eyes were just like expanding lotus petals. And every part of his body manifested all of these symptoms of a Mahapurush. We know for those people that are expert in physiognomy that they can look at a person's body and understand their mentality, their nature, like that, by looking at it, just as an astrologer can look at a chart, or a palmist can look at the palm and understand things. So physiognomy means you can look at the person's body and understand about their nature. And the manifested body of Jiva Goswami, even as a young child, showed all the symptoms of a Mahapurush. Lotus eyes, a high, beautiful nose, a broad forehead, a broad chest, long arms, radiant golden body. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to Ramkeli to meet with Rupa and Sanatan, Jiva was given the opportunity at that time. It was given the opportunity at that time to be able to have the darshan of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Just one second here.
You can continue, bro. That's the rest of the devotees in this class and to others.
Oh, I see. Oh, wow. That'd be very, very wonderful. Yes, yes. Um, in this way, when he was visiting Ramkeli, Jiva Goswami got an opportunity to see him. And that would turn out to be the only opportunity, the only time that Jiva Goswami was able to associate with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And although he was only a child, although he was just a young child, he kept that form of the Lord embraced deep within his heart. He was so mesmerized by the beauty of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When, as he was growing up, when he was eating, when he was lying down, when he was having dreams, during the day when he was awake, going about his activities, all of the time he was constantly meditating upon this form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that he had seen speaking to his father and his uncles. And of course, when the fathers and when the father and his uncles renounced everything and left, Jiva Goswami, being the only child, was left with his mother in the family home there. And lying on her lap, he would cry and cry and cry tears of separation, from the not only the remembrance of Mahaprabhu, but from now his uncle Rupa and Sanatan and his father Anupam Vallabha. So in this way, we see that the mother was lamenting that the child's face was always wet with tears of love for the Lord that he was no longer seeing. And even his friends also fell under the shadow of this darkness. And it was only with great difficulty that he managed his way through this grief. Um, Whenever he would have this opportunity to fully remember his father, his uncles, the lotus feet of Mahaprabhu, he would just fall to the ground unconscious. There are four prominent things, and I'm going to conclude here and give you all the opportunity to hear what's said about these by Sitala in her class. But there are four prominent milestones in the life of Jiva Goswami that should be looked at, that should be understood because of their significance on molding him into the person he is. First of them is Lord Chaitanya coming to Ramkeli and him meeting Lord Chaitanya there. We discussed that briefly. Second is after Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's departure from Ramkeli, Jiva Goswami's uncles and his father leaving Ramkeli for Vrindavan. The third is the departure of his father from this world as he was yet returning home. And the fourth is the meeting of Lord Nityananda and the being taken by Lord Nityananda all around Navadvip Dham for Parikram. We have this Navadvip Parikram that goes on every year during the Mayapur festival, a very wonderful event. And imagine if that Parikram were just yourself and Lord Nityananda. This is what happened to Jiva Goswami. So these are the four significant things that really set the path of Jiva Goswami's life. Meeting Lord Chaitanya in Ramkeli. After Lord Chaitanya leaving Ramkeli, the eventual departure of his uncles and father for Vrindavan. Then, upon his father's attempt to return to home, his departure from this world, and ultimately meeting Lord Nityananda in Navadvip and being shown the full Navadvip Parikram by Lord Nityananda. So these are four things which we can embrace as significant life-forming events in the life of Jiva Goswami. And I encourage you to take the opportunity to listen to this lecture, which I put the link in there for, by Mother Sitala. It is a profoundly deep lecture on the life of Jiva Goswami. Although I didn't speak as much on Jiva Goswami, I felt since it was Devananda Pandit's actual day to speak prominently on him, give just some little tidbits as they say, a little bit of an hors d'oeuvre so that your taste buds will be whetted to want to hear more about Jiva Goswami and this opportunity. So a little appetizer, yes. So I've been asked to finish at this time frame here, and I thank you all very much once again for this opportunity. I'm always, whenever Krishna Namananda calls and writes to me, asks me, can you speak? Yes, I can speak. Whatever the day, I'll arrange it. I'm very happy because of this wonderful assembly of devotees here. So thank you all very much. I'm very grateful for this opportunity. And I turn things back over to Krishna Namananda Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Caturatma Prabhu, for wonderfully describing the most important instructions of Devananda Pandit from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srivas Thakur. It's easily forgotten instruction, but they are the most important instructions for our practice. So hopefully we'll have another class on Jiva Goswami from you probably.
Yes,
in a few
I'd
weeks.
be more than happy to. Before I close, I want to put in the chat group here a link to my own YouTube page, which has many lectures on different Vaishnava acharyas. I mean, I should take that opportunity, All right. Prabhu, thank you very much.
Okay, we'll have quick announcements. Please join Sunday Feast program today evening. Of course, today being Ekadasi, more important to take darshan and to take the association of devotees near the class. We'll have Ram Katha going on from today onwards until probably January 27th as Ayodhya Ram Mandir opening day coming up from ISKCON of Central New Jersey under the guidance of Madhupad Prabhu. We'll have Ram Katha and Sunday Feast programs, and as well as we'll have 1 week of Ram Katha, I think next week of January 14th to 21st. We'll post more details on that. And yeah, and upcoming events is, I think next is, I think February is the February 15th, 21st, and 29th. 15th is Advaita Acharya Prabhu's, I think, appearance. 21st is Lord Nityan Prabhu's appearance, and 29th is Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur's appearance. So very prominent days. Please mark it and join those important events. And if you like to order Govindas, you can place your orders. Every Friday we started pizza again, so you can place your order govindas@nj.com, or you can text one of us if you like to place orders. So those are the quick announcements. Any other thing, Madhubal? I'm missing anything else?
I want to thank you, Prabhu, for your service to organizing these sanghas, and to Madhupati for keeping an eye on things there in ISKCON Central New Jersey. It's such a wonderful service you're both doing for Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Caturatma Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you all for your association. Vanchakalpatarubhyasya
Devananda Pandit ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande.
Hari Bo.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you all. See you all in the evening. Hare Krishna.